I just wanted to personally thank each and every one of you who has started following our ministry either on Facebook or YouTube. While we're fairly new to social media, our ministry has been operating in the physical trenches, the highways and the byways for the last 10 years. It got its start actually 10 years ago when the Lord placed it on my parents' heart to begin reaching out to the homeless within our community. And God just began to grow it and expand it. And before we knew, we had live worship, and we began to see music really touching people's lives. People that had nothing, that were sometimes walking on foot out of the woods because they were living in tents, and coming and being led by the anointed music and finding us because of the music was drawing them through the Spirit of God, and watching tears just stream from people's eyes and lives being changed. And it has been such a humbling and privileged experience to just be able to use a gift that God has given each of us at Sheepsong Ministries to help the broken and to just bring God glory. Well, for the last 10 years, that's been our mission. And on December 14th of 2019, everything changed for all of us, really, in a moment. While I was actually at home preparing some new digital equipment for our Christmas Eve service in the park that last Christmas, I ended up actually, these in-ears here, these in-ear monitors, I had these in my ears, and I basically got a reverb loop and an ultrasonic blast to my ears that was so incredibly loud. And even though it was only in my ears for about 3 seconds and I ripped them out, I knew that the damage had been done. I had heard loud sounds in my in-ears in the past and feedback, but this was not that. I just knew in my heart and in my mind in that moment that something bad had happened. I just didn't really know how bad it was going to be. So basically, that moment shifted our ministry, and it shifted my life and my family's lives because of everything that came as a result. So the incident caused me to develop a neurological and rare hearing condition called hyperacusis. I had never heard of it until it happened to me. And it actually only happens to 1 in 50,000 people who hear a loud noise. But basically, one of the many symptoms that come from it is it causes sounds to become so incredibly loud. Even the sound of your own talking voice or chewing food becomes unbearable. And it sends a pain sensory trigger to the brain that tells your brain that you're in a constant state of heightened pain. And it causes your body to go into a state of adrenaline, fight or flight, and it just wreaks havoc on your body. Within 1 week, I had lost so much weight. I was down to 94 pounds, and I couldn't sleep because the injury was not letting my brain shut down. So I would fall asleep for a couple seconds, and I would just be woken back up instantly. And you can't live like that very long before your body starts to shut down, which was what was happening. As far as being able to go out and minister by music, I couldn't barely even hear my own whisper, let alone be out there ministering through amplification. So you can imagine how devastating it really was to feel like everything that I had soaked my heart and my life into was being ripped out from underneath me in a split second. I had to go into a state of isolation because I couldn't be around any sounds. And it was very lonely. And through it, God began to write a silent melody in my heart. And there was silent pleas to the Lord. I began to hear him like I never had heard him before. But the physical and the mental and the emotional pain was so unbearable that I really reached a breaking point, and I cried out to the Lord to just stop the agony and to just I didn't want my family to have to go through what they were going through because of this. And I just said, Lord, just take me home, because this is not fair to any of us. And I don't want to be living like this anymore. I let go. And it was in that moment that God showed me what true faith really means. When you are willing to literally let go of your very life, everything below that is like secondary. Your very life, when you let it go, you let go of everything. And then God can finally begin to put the pieces back together. Well, we went from doctor to doctor, and there was really no answers. Nobody really knew what was wrong. And I didn't know if I was going to make it, really, honestly, how much longer my body could go through what was happening to it. And by God's grace, my husband, actually, he's usually behind the camera, and he doesn't usually like to come in front of the camera too much, except for if he's playing drums, which is what he would do for several years up to now at the ministry in the park. Kevin, can you come over here for a second? And yeah. So this is my husband, Kevin, who,
hello,
Lord willing, you guys will be seeing more of in the music videos, which is kind of why we're even sharing this before a song, because this is actually a really monumental moment for us. So kind of like while I was falling apart, you had to just basically stop working. He had to become my full-time caregiver because I couldn't take care of myself. And mentally, the what was happening to my brain was actually causing me to fall into a state of psychosis. And it was very hard, and it was very traumatic for both of us to go through. And it was during that time that you basically just submitted full time into trying to find answers. And God really led you to a doctor down in South Florida, Dr. Danish, who I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but what was so amazing was the very first time that we went there, he asked me if I was a woman of faith. And I looked at him in all my years in my walk before the Lord, and I really was like, well, what does that have to do with that? And I knew better. I should have known better. But what he said, because I was so broken, and I was thinking, I'm going to a medical doctor. I needed medical answers, right? And he's like, are you a person of faith? And so I said yes, and he said, that's what's going to get you well, right?
Yeah. We saw about 10 different doctors before we finally knew what had happened.
Yeah.
And he had the answers we needed, and he had a way for you to get better.
Yeah.
And it was, around that time we were told it's a long recovery.
1 to 2 years, actually, yeah.
And we didn't know if we'd ever play music together again, since I play drums. It's a loud instrument.
Yeah.
And
well, see, we actually both met in the music industry, and we were both pursuing music separately in mainstream pop. And even though I was raised in the church, you as well, we both kind of like went our own way, and God had to bring us back and teach us that he gave us these gifts for a purpose, for his glory. You actually spent 8 years in college getting 2 degrees for percussive arts.
2 music degrees.
2 music degrees, over 40 years playing. And then basically the Lord is like, you're going to start ministering to the homeless, the very least, the people that our society looks at outcasts, and many of us just kind of brush off and look the other way. And God began to use us in those places, teaching us that in his kingdom, the last truly are the first. And but basically down there in South Florida with Dr. Danish, he said that it was going to be my state of mind and my faith that was going to propel me forward. And then he knew that I was a musician, and he said, the other thing is I don't want you to go through my conventional sound therapy treatment. He said, I don't think that's going to be the best thing for you. I want you to start incorporating your music, your worship back in.
Yep.
Start with 5 minutes a day at very, very low volume and work up from there. And it's amazing because I look back and I realize I spent 10 years using that very music to heal people because God's Spirit was breathed into it, and I watched people's lives be mended from the inside out because of just seeing the heart of God being poured out through this platform of melody. And now I was told, now you're going to use it and it's going to bring healing into your own life. And it just made me, and probably you too, maybe realize how powerful music, when it's used in the way that God intended it to be used, can be, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to put words to how to understand the feeling we had the day that we filmed this song. It was a moment that we didn't know if we'd ever get back. And we did some things to try and lower the volume, softer sticks, and we put padding around the room and plexiglass around the cymbals to try and lower the volume. And we had Brian help us install a limiter so that you would never have that issue again with the inners. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think all those things, along with the Lord, led us up to that moment of 1 year later, we're finally able to play music together again for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think what a fitting, time to do it is around Christmas and celebrate Jesus and play some music,
Yeah.
I think is just, again, there's no way to put into words what we felt like. That I just know I kept smiling.
I know.
And that's all,
it's only God really knows the stories that impact our life. Like he truly knows what it is we're going through. We can tell our story and we can share our story. Just like every single one of you listening, I know, has gone through stuff and has your own story. And yet, no matter how you try and express it, words don't usually even begin to break the exterior shell of really what the impact is that when we go through something that's very traumatic. And
the people
that go through it with you.
I know. I have a brand new appreciation for anyone that has been on the support side of someone going through an injury or
mental health that resulted from this injury,
or a chronic disease or something. Yeah. I have a brand new appreciation for that, and those and anyone with hyperacusis. That is something I've never heard of, and we never heard about it. And we know a lot of musicians that use in-ear monitors, and this is something to watch out for.
Yeah.
It's, one doctor said it was equivalent to a gunshot going off right next to your head.
Except for stuck inside your ears.
Yeah, except,
it was, basically that was the big difference is something going off next to you is one thing, but these things actually go like inside your ears, and so there was nowhere for the sound to escape, and so it just basically straight in. And I actually felt something through my brain and in the back of my neck and head when it happened. And right after, I asked you, I said, do you think I did neurological damage? And you're like, it's just a sound. We didn't think anything of it.
I didn't know, but I heard it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my in-ear monitors in, and I heard yours across the room during rehearsal.
See, in-ears are basically, as soon as you take them out, you shouldn't be able to hear them actually even about 2 inches from your ears. That's how they work. They're isolated. But the sound was so loud that when I ripped it out of my ears and threw him down, he was about 8 foot away and he could hear the in-ears. So that's how loud it was inside my ears. I mean, honestly, it's by God's grace that I didn't have permanent damage. I was told by my doctors that I had no permanent hearing loss, that this was a condition that was going to reverse itself, but it was going to take a lot of strength. because unfortunately a lot of people that end up with this condition, they can't ever find their way out of it, because you have to really literally confront the sound very smart. You can't just blast sound and it's going to immediately reverse. You have to be very, what would you say, like very intentional about the process of reintroducing sound, but you have to be willing to get past those moments. And man, it really showed me how I don't even know how to explain it. The strength, not my own strength, God's strength, literally, that is required when we go through something that is literally impossible, and we see God becoming our literal strength. It's amazing, and it teaches you that with God, everything is truly possible, and that if we just trust and put our complete faith in Him, things don't always go the way we want, but in the end, God always uses everything for our good, and He is brought glory through it if we just trust in Him, you know?
Absolutely. Today's song is proof of that, the fact that we're playing again together. This should be something to celebrate. It's a good occasion for your situation. It's a big stepping stone in your recovery, and hopefully it's good music that brings people a good Christmas song for the season.
Yeah, we tried. I mean, we're a little rusty because it's been a very rough year. So this is, a very monumental moment, and I just wanted to personally say, anybody out there, I know this has been a hard year for all of us. I don't want to say that it's only been hard for us, because with COVID, a lot of people have lost their lives, and just the panic and the fear that has been instilled into the hearts and minds of so many, myself included. We've all had those moments where we've wondered, what's going to happen? And I really, truly believe that God allowed hyperacusis to happen for me because of moments like right now that I wouldn't be in and we wouldn't be in if it hadn't happened. I know it seems bizarre to say, but the truth is, had that not happened, our ministry would have never shifted to online, and God would have not been able to do what He needed to do with us had He not put that pivot point in our lives. And it also really gave me kind of a head start on this whole, we just have to throw it all at the feet of Jesus. Anytime I would feel that panic and that fear from the injury and from the neurological stuff that was happening swell up in me, I would literally feel it swell up like a flood. And sometimes it would just come out and I would just start bawling, because one of the symptoms was crying spells, which we had no idea. But it has to do with the trigeminal nerve or something in the brain. I would literally, God taught me how to give it to Him. And it was a conscious decision, and I would do it sometimes every minute, sometimes every hour, sometimes, definitely daily. But anytime I would feel that fear, I would give it back to Him. And Lord, You allowed this for a reason in my life. And Lord, and this is something my dad, who you've probably seen on some of the prophecy updates, that's my dad, and he's actually a big part of this ministry. My parents, amazing man and women of God, and I love them very much. And but he told me this one time. He said, do you trust God? Do you believe that God has your best interest in heart? Yes. Okay, so then shouldn't you trust that if you're going through this, that it is for good, because He loves you and He's a good Father and He only wants the very best for you. So trust this process. And that's what I really held on to. Trusting the process, believing in God's goodness. And even though my life didn't feel good, and we didn't know if we were going to make it at times, and music aside, we just didn't even know where we were going to be. It was just...
Not at all. I'd say if hyperacusis taught us something, it's to trust even more in Jesus.
Amen, yes.
And if you're suffering from hyperacusis or even anxiety, basic anxiety over the year's events or anything else, the way that we got through it was through Jesus,
Yep.
and we would recommend that also.
Absolutely. That's the main thing I feel that has been an overcome, and not that you overcome it once and for all until we are, in the presence of the Lord. But this syndrome, this disorder actually was very emotionally driven, so it caused a huge anxiety and panic disorder that I'd never had to deal with in my life to this extreme. And it taught me, man, you really need to just give it all to Jesus,
Yep.
every moment. And when about 3 weeks into the injury, we were coming home from, I'll share this one last thing, but came home from the grocery store, and I went into the store, and I literally could hear everybody's conversation at the same time in my head, like it was on a megaphone. And my brain just was overloaded, and I had to get out of there. And I ran.
I remember.
I ran out of the store, like screaming with my hands over my ears, and felt like a crazy person.
Yeah, and we didn't know why. We didn't know what was going on.
No. And I remember we were driving home, and it was interesting because that was a Sunday. We actually went to the ministry. I wasn't able to play, but I put stuff on my ears, and I rapped, and I went down, and we went to the ministry, and I listened to my dad share a word, and I went and I, just talked with some of the people that I had grown to love, and we'd grown to love through the ministry. And it was a really good day, and just how the enemy works. It was a really good day, and I had a great conversation with the Lord that day. We go to the grocery store, and on the way home, I literally heard the enemy's voice speak in my mind, your life is over. Your husband is never going to stay with you through this, and you're going to be alone, so you might as well literally just give up. And
we proved them wrong.
And yes.
We proved them wrong.
Yes.
Absolutely. You
Amen.
got through it. I'm here. And
whom shall we fear?
Hey.
In the face of death, in the face of anything, right?
That's right.
That's right. God's bigger.
Speaking of God, why don't you tell them about this song?
Yeah. I like to talk, and I could talk forever. But yes, so we say all that to say this. This is a really big moment because earlier this year, I released my first live worship session by myself. And that was a huge moment because of everything. But this moment's even bigger because my husband here, him and I, the Lord put us together. And we definitely, as cheesy as it sounds, complete each other on many levels.
We're the yin and yang.
Well, so you're not supposed to say that. That's
not only
that's
musically.
Not a good thing to say.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a
we'll
weird
cut
thing.
all this.
No.
We'll edit this part out. You'll never see it.
Are we going to really edit this out?
Sure. Start it one more time.
Okay.
So tell us about this.
So we say all that to say this. This is a huge monumental moment because about 4 or 5 months ago, I was able to release my first live worship session by myself. But my heart and our heart really is in this together. It's where we've been for years now through the ministry with live worship. And we didn't know if that was ever going to happen again. We didn't know. We really thought it was over. We thought those moments that we had shared, watching people's lives be touched through music, through the music that we were a part of, was behind us. But God had other plans, and He brought us through this valley of tears, and He taught us how to turn it into a watering well of God's goodness. And so this song is a testimony of His goodness, because
me,
for the first time, you and I, and these in-ears, that was the biggest moment, putting these in-ears back in. We have to face our fears. Fear is only as big as we allow it to be. And I wasn't going to sit back and allow my fear to control and steer the rest of my life, because my purpose through the music is to reach you guys, to bless you, to share the heart of Christ through the music that I know He has done for the last decade in our local communities, reaching the very least. And So I'm not going to give up, and we're not going to give up.
Nope.
And we're just going to keep pressing on and just be used of the Lord however and wherever and whenever He leads us. So thank you guys so much for listening to us. And we really pray that you can sense the presence of God moving through this song as we prayerfully and lovingly prepared it for you guys. So without further ado, may this song bless you. And from all of us at Sheepsong Ministries, may you have a wonderful, blessed, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping. So bring him incense, gold and myrrh, come peasant king to own him. The King of kings salvation brings, that loving hearts enthrone him. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him glad, the babe, the Son of Mary. Raise, raise a song on high, the Virgin sings a lullaby. Joy, joy, for Christ is born, the babe, the Son of Mary. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. Of Mary. What child is this who's born this day? What child is this who's born this day? Who's born this day? Who is born? Nails, spears shall pierce him through, the cross he bore for me and you. Hail, hail the Word made flesh, the babe, the Son of Mary. Oh, this is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. This
So I just wanted to bring you in the studio and show you a quick, really amazing behind the scenes moment that happened while we were working on this song, What Child Is This? It actually was so amazing, it blew my mind that I could not share it. So we have 2 Siberian Huskies, and basically while I was mixing, I had it going through these 2 speakers, and my one husky came in and started singing along, believe it or not. He was howling, and I jokingly told him, hey, why don't you sing on the song? And so I just, for fun, pressed record at a random spot, and I couldn't believe when I played it back. It literally sounded like perfect pitch at the perfect spot, and I could not put it in the song. So I actually am going to show it to you really quick and isolate it so you can hear it by itself, and then show it to you how it's blended in. And I didn't move it. I left it exactly where he sang, and it's mind-blowing. Just reminds me of Romans 8:22, where it says that all creation groaneth and travaileth together, waiting for the redemption that we are to receive through Christ. God's creation is amazing. So I hope this blows your mind like it blew mine when it happened. So that is him singing when I isolate it, and now I'm going to play it along in the song so you could hear what he was hearing when he recorded this. It's pretty amazing. I don't know. I just thought I'd share that with you guys. Hi. So this is the famous Tony who's... This is his cameo appearance. He decided he wanted to be also on the first recording back with Mommy and Daddy.